Richland is growing, and with that growth comes transportation issues. Your city is committed to creating and maintaining safe streets available to everyone. Hello, I'm Gail Everett, and thanks for joining me on this special program about sharing our streets. Joining me today is Richland traffic engineer John Deskins. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
When Richland plans new streets or updates its existing street system, city engineers reference the recently adopted Complete Streets policy. Why was Richland's Complete Street policy adopted, and what does it mean for our residents?
Well, basically, the Complete Streets policy was developed to help guide staff in creating and maintaining a safe transportation system for all users, and that includes pedestrians, bicyclists, transit users, and motor vehicles. So what that does, though, is it also helps promote active transportation like bicycling and walking, and so that promotes having a healthier community.
All right, excellent. John, can you explain some of the changes that have recently been completed?
Sure. We've recently worked on Swift Boulevard in front of City Hall. We added bicycle lanes on Swift Boulevard, as well as some pedestrian activated beacons at the library and also at Cadillac Hospital.
Okay, excellent. Is there anywhere else?
Sure, we have some other projects like Jadwin Avenue.
Okay.
You may have noticed that there's some new bicycle lanes out there between Williams and Chief Joseph Middle School.
There sure are.
Yeah, and one of the nice things about those bike lanes is it adds a nice buffer space against sidewalks. So you feel like you're more separated from traffic if you're sitting at a bus stop or walking along the sidewalk.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think of that. That's true.
Recently, we're working on a project right now on George Washington Way that adds bicycle lanes from McMurray all the way to Horn Rapids.
Okay.
And back when we did Queensgate Drive, we added bicycle lanes on the roadway there, as well as updated and added to the pathway along Queensgate and Keene.
So what future projects lay ahead?
Well, we'd like to extend the bike lanes on Jadwin Boulevard, so we're looking at an opportunity to do that between Swift and Williams, and also from SR 240 down to the middle school.
Okay.
We'll be looking, when we do roadway projects, resurfacing projects, at opportunities to add bike lanes or other features at that time.
Okay.
And we're also trying to obtain funding for two major bicycle projects for planning purposes, and that's the Vantage Pathway completion between SR 240 and Hagen Road out there by Horn Rapids.
Really? Okay, that sounds great.
And another exciting project we're trying to get some funding for so we can do some planning is a new overpass, bicycle pedestrian overpass over SR 240 near Columbia Center Boulevard.
Really? Well, that sounds like some exciting projects. That's awesome. With the addition of sidewalk and crosswalk improvements, as well as the addition of more bicycle lanes in Richland, comes the need for navigation tips for all users. What are the basic rules for shared use of our roadway, John?
Well, we've talked a lot about bicycles already, so I'll say that all city streets allow for bicycle use, whether they're marked or not. And when bicyclists are using the street, they should ride in the direction of traffic.
Okay.
One common misconception is that bicyclists are allowed to use the sidewalk. So if you're not comfortable being in the street, whether it's in the street with traffic or bike lanes, you can use the sidewalk. You just need to make sure to yield to all pedestrians. All city intersections have legal crosswalks, and that's another thing that maybe a lot of people don't know, is we have legal crosswalks at any city intersection, whether it's marked or not.
Okay.
So if you see a pedestrian that's waiting to cross the street in the intersection, you as a driver should stop and yield to those pedestrians. And as a pedestrian, you want to make sure that not just one driver stops, but there's usually 3 or 4 more lanes that you have to cross, and to do it safely, you want to make sure that all vehicles in all lanes are stopped for you.
Okay, and they say to for the pedestrian or the bicyclist to have actually contact with the drivers of all the vehicles?
Yeah, definitely having eye contact is a good means to make sure that you know that you're safe.
Yeah, and that they see you.
That's
very good. In areas that need to allow for motor vehicle turning lanes or streets that may be too narrow for separate bike lanes, bicyclists and motor vehicles will need to share the same pathway. Shared lane markings on the street and signage on the road will indicate that the bicyclist has the full lane of traffic. Please explain how these shared markings or sharrows work.
Okay, well, I'd like to talk about a specific location where we've installed them first, and that's at George Washington Way and Spengler, and also near George Washington McMurray.
Okay, that's kind of North Richland, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So on the new bike lanes there, and specifically the sharrows were installed at this location because we had a gap in the bike lanes. We had to give up a little bit for the turn lane. So as a rider, you may want to stay in the road and just go through the intersection, and you can do that. And the sharrows are there to help the driver or the bicyclist position themselves properly in the lane. And but obviously, a lot of cyclists won't feel comfortable staying in the roadway like that, and they have an option to get off the roadway and use the sidewalk, as we've discussed. And they can go through the intersection and then hop back onto the bike lane on the other side.
Okay, so there are options.
There are options.
Let's watch this short video on how to use a shared lane.
In a continuous effort to make our streets safe for all roadway users, the city has installed new bicycle shared lane markings, or sharrows, at the intersection of George Washington Way and Spangler. These markings indicate a shared lane environment for bicycles and automobiles. When approaching the intersection at Spangler, the on-street bike lanes are dropped at the intersection to provide the necessary left turn lanes. Bicyclists have an option where the striped bicycle lanes end, to use the new ramps up onto the sidewalk through the intersection, or use the roadway. If using the sidewalk, cyclists need to yield to pedestrians and dismount and walk their bike across the intersection for safety. If the bicyclist chooses to use the roadway through the intersection, then they should position themselves safely in the lane centered on the sharrow marking. This marking and the associated sign that indicates bicycles may use the full lane also alerts motor vehicles to the potential presence of bicyclists. When the dedicated bike lane resumes, bicyclists should safely merge to the lane as soon as possible. When a motorist approaches a bicyclist in the sharrow zone, the driver should slow and follow considerately. If it is safe to pass, the driver should move into the left lane. Or if the roadway is a single lane, then pass on the left, giving 3 feet of space, and only do so when safe from oncoming traffic. In time, citizens will start seeing the use of sharrows in select locations in the city to help guide bicyclists and motorists more safely when in areas where a standard bike lane can't be provided. By being a courteous user and sharing our streets, we can all make our commute a smoother and safer way to travel for all users.
In some areas of the city, on-street parking is a problem due to narrow streets. Let's talk for a few moments about state laws as they regard parking. John, is it legal to partially or to park fully on a sidewalk?
The simple answer is no. Sidewalks are meant for pedestrians.
Okay, perfect. Well said. Well, what rules, how close can a car park to a crosswalk?
You can't park on a crosswalk,
Okay.
and you can't park within 20 feet of a crosswalk on either side. And the primary reason for that is we want to provide sight distance from the pedestrian to the driver and from the driver to the pedestrian so they can see each other and make a safe crossing.
Well, that makes sense.
So usually that 20-foot requirement applies anywhere. Sometimes those distances are increased, usually by posting of signs to make sure we have even more sight distance.
The city has installed 14 crosswalk locations for pedestrian-activated rapid flashing beacons. What are these and how are these sites chosen for their use?
Well, typically they're places where we expect a high usage by pedestrians.
Okay.
Places like the library, the hospital, maybe our pathways and trails, high-use transit stops where people are trying to cross a 5-lane roadway to get back and forth to the transit stops, and also schools.
Okay, excellent. And the good part of this is most of them have been funded by grants and partnerships. Can you explain this a little bit more to me?
Sure. We've used the Community Development Block Grant Program to fund many of our key locations.
Okay.
And we've also included them on capital projects when we've had the opportunity. Other funding partners are the State Highway Safety Program and also the Washington Traffic Safety Commission.
Okay, and did you mention earlier that the Battelle had contributed?
That's right. PNNL has also are planning to install 3 locations up by their campus as
Okay,
well. So you'll
excellent.
see those soon.
Okay, great. So how many more are planned for the future in Richland?
Well, right now we have 8 more planned. 8 more planned with several on the drawing board and some that have been grant funded, so they'll be on the drawing board soon. So hopefully within the next 2 years, those 8 will be installed and completed.
Sounds like we're going towards that walkable Richland that we have always wanted to be, isn't
Yes,
it?
yes.
Yeah. Let's watch this short video on how to use a pedestrian-activated rapid flash beacon.
As a part of the city's effort to make pedestrian street crossings more safe for users, new pedestrian-activated rapid flash beacons are being installed throughout the city. These are used to supplement warning signs and alert drivers at unsignalized intersections, mid-block crosswalks, and roundabouts. To use, activate the warning lights. Stop at the edge of the crosswalk and look both ways for traffic to stop before stepping onto the crosswalk. Make sure all lanes of traffic have stopped. Use caution and remember to always walk in the crossing. By being a courteous user and sharing our streets, we can all make our travel smoother and safer for all users.
Where can people find more information on these issues?
Well, go to our city website and look under Public Works, and there you'll find sections about capital projects that we have ongoing, as well as a section for traffic and streets.
Okay, so you got a lot of good information out there, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes, great. Thank you to John Deskins for talking to us today about how we can all share the streets and make our city transportation system safe and accessible for all users. If you have any other questions about your city, the best place to start is at the city's website, where you can find at the link below. Thanks for watching. I'm Gail Everett.